In this video, we look at the trends in gold production for the current leading global players over the past 50 years, focusing on their percentage contribution to the world total. The current world leader for gold production is China, which was a very minor player in the 1970s at just 0.1% of the total, but following the revival of its economy from the late 1970s, its gold production rose consistently, rising to a peak at 15.8% of world output in 2012, and it has pulled back to 12.3% as of 2021. Australia is the second largest producer, and while it also had a relatively weak contribution through the 1970s at just over 1%, it had a strong pickup through the mid-1980s through to the 1990s to around 11 to 12%, and its share declined moderately through the 2000s to a low of 8.9% in 2009, but has picked back up to 11% in recent years. In contrast to China and Australia, the third largest player, Russia, had its share of gold output peak in the 1970s at 18.8% in 1976, before an abrupt decline in 1977 to 12%, and then a gradual slide through the 1980s, which continued through the 1990s after the fall of the Soviet Union, reaching a low of 4.6% in 1998, although with the turnaround in Russia's economy since the 2000s, gold production as a percentage of the global total has also risen to 10% as of 2021. The US, which was the fourth largest producer in 2021, also had a relatively low contribution to the world total through the 1970s at around 2 to 3%, with a big pickup through the late 1980s to 13.5% by 1989, peaking at 15% in 1997, before a consistent decline over the next 20 years to just 6% by 2021. Canada, the fifth largest producer, has seen more moderate swings in its share of gold production, starting at over 4% in the 1970s, rising to a peak of 8.3% in 1991, then trending down to 3.9% in 2011, and picking up over the past decade to 5.7% in 2021. Ghana is the sixth largest global producer and saw a slide in production from 1.4% in 1970 to 0.6% in 1986, but its share started to pick up through the 1990s to 3.1% by 1999 and roughly maintained its share through the 2000s. And after a dip in the mid-2010s to 2.5% in 2017, has risen to 4.3% in 2021, its highest share in the past 50 years. For the seventh largest player, South Africa, we have to shift the scale from a maximum 20% to a maximum 70%, with the country dominating world output through the 1970s, starting the decade at 61.7%, dipping to 51.3% in 1976, and ending the decade back at 57.4%. However, this was followed by an almost uninterrupted four-decade decline to just a 3.3% share by 2021. The other major shift has been the big rise in aggregate production of all the other producers beyond this top seven combined, which is especially a function of the rise of emerging economies globally, which started to pick up from the 1990s, with the share of this group rising from just 8.2% in 1970 to 37.7% in 2021. Leave any comments you have on the video below and visit our website www.canadianminingreport.com for more on Canadian gold production and the TSXV junior gold producers, including our new product, the Top 50 TSXV metal miners, weekly updates, and longer form industry reports.